Blazers were great. Second half, spectacular, 60-40 after a tie game at halftime. They had a little surge at the end of the second quarter, tie the game at halftime, and then the game really changed, if not ended, in the final 90 seconds of the third quarter. This was a 6-point game with less than a minute and a half left in the third, and the Blazers go on a 12-2 run, scored 12 points in the last 81 seconds of the third quarter, and all of a sudden a 6-point lead for them is a 16-point lead for them. And with the way the Thunder are shooting the ball, you're not going to be able to overcome that when you can't hit threes. Damian Lillard, is coming off what was maybe the low point of his professional career. Not only them getting swept last season by New Orleans without Boogie Cousins, but them getting swept in a series where CJ was great and he was really bad. That's not who he had been in his playoff career, but it's who he was last year. It made people question whether or not the Blazers should break up CJ and Dame. Can you win with that undersized of a backcourt? And he has been spectacular in this series, and he and Russ don't seem to like each other. Russ had some spicy comments for him a couple months ago about how he busts his A every single time they play. And since then, all Dame's done is go 31, 51, 30, and 29 in the 4 games these two teams have played each other. Dame has quite simply been the best player on the court through 2 games of this series and hasn't been close.
And Dame, from a respect standpoint around the league, he's always a guy just fighting for respect. When people talk about the top point guards in the NBA, his name seems to be omitted from the list. Or at the end, you'll be like, oh, man, I forgot about Dame Lillard. And, I mean, he's got a sensational game. You and I were talking this morning. I just like his overall demeanor because it's hard to match Russell's intensity. And you can match it without being as demonstrative as Russ is. And that's what he's been. He's been very professional. He's taken it personal, but you can't see that. And his partner in CJ, man, it gives him that relief because let's not forget, them being up 2-0, they haven't had a bunch of playoff success, but we didn't expect them to win both of these games absent of their center. The horrific injury that they have late in the season, we didn't know how they would respond. The 2 games at home, after not having playoff success, man, they have been led by their backcourt, especially Damian Lillard, who doesn't get the type of attention that he should around NBA circles.
We got to talk about the Thunder. We talk so much about how Russell is the heartbeat of this team, and he has spent so many games where he's carried this team. He's coming off a 5 for 20 night. What do you make of that?
He was, I mean, he owned it. I'll give him credit because he owned it.
Yes.
He was terrible. It was not just 5 for 20 from the field. It was 6 turnovers, 5 of which are the worst type of turnovers, live ball turnovers. So not a traveling violation, not an offensive foul, but where the other team gets the ball in live play, those turnovers almost always lead to easy buckets. And this is now a really critical moment, not only obviously in the Thunder season, but in Russell Westbrook's career. I mean, since Kevin Durant left, first year he's gone, 47 wins. They lose in the first round in 5 games. Last year, 48 wins. They lose in the first round in 6 games. This year, 49 wins. So essentially the same regular season team the 3 years KD's been gone. But this year, they're the favorite. I know they're the 6th seed, so it looks odd. But because of the Nurkic injury, they were the Vegas favorite going into this series. It's not over because they haven't lost at home yet. But when you're hitting 5 or 6 3-pointers a game as a team, you're not going to win playoff games. And when your 2 best players aren't playing well at all, Paul George was awful in Game 1. Russ was really, really bad last night. No matter how big of a Russell Westbrook fan you are, you can acknowledge that. They have to both be outstanding in Game 3 to turn this into a series again.
Yeah, when you think about these 2 guys when they partnered up in Paul George, man, his first half of the regular season was outstanding. Came up with some shoulder problems. The last third of the season struggled down the end. But really, man, this story is about Russ. Because Paul George, he noticeably, he's been injured. And you would expect Russ, after game number 1, to send a message in game number 2. And he wasn't able to do that. And it's about the matchup that he has. He doesn't have a matchup that he can dominate, and that's given him problems. You could see last night that he started getting very, very frustrated. Man, this game number 3, this weekend, it becomes one of the biggest games of his career. I think they play Sunday. Maybe,
I think Game 4 would be Sunday. I think they play Friday evening.
Yeah, but that game being one of the biggest of Russ' career, a guy, a former MVP, you would think this early in the playoffs, Yes, with the early exit last season,
Man, you
with
can't
Paul
have it.
George deciding that, yes, I am going to partner with Russ, he's got to be questioning that. Russ has got to be questioning that. And you could see it in the press conference after the game.
And Paul George, by the way, to his credit, was good last night. Paul George did his job. What is so odd for Russ, and I think one of the reasons he's frustrated is he is in the past, even if he can't always check Dame, he's been able to bully whichever of the guards is on him. Whether it's CJ or Dame, he can take him down on the block. He can take him off the dribble. Russ could do none of that. He couldn't get anything he wanted last night. 5 of 20 is exactly as bad as it sounds, and it's actually a little worse than it sounds, because he only got to the free throw line twice the entire game. So Kevin Durant got killed justifiably yesterday for only taking 8 shots. But he took a little bit more than that because he shot 12 free throws. When you look at the box score, you're like, all right, so Russ was 5 of 20 with 3 free throw attempts?
Right.
That can't happen. That means he's not attacking. That means he's not getting to his spot. It means he's not getting to the rim.
Unless he can turn his game around and we can see, Paul George build off the 27 he had last night, is there any chance the Thunder can bounce back, get themselves back into the series?
There is a chance. They talked about it. The series doesn't start until the home team loses a game or the visiting team wins on the road. So, yes, there is still hope. They have a great home court advantage, but the psyche of these two players becomes very, very important in game number 3. How many early round failures can one of our best players in the NBA have? And Russ, he has his detractors and everything. He has his people that constantly are after him because of his style and maybe some of his demeanor. But this is unexcusable. If they lose in the first round to Portland, minus their center, man, there's going to be a lot of questions as far as Russ going forward with Paul George there in OKC, Nick.
And those questions were going to be the ones that I thought going into this series Portland was going to have to look at. Even though Dame had been committed, I want to be here, I want to stay with the Blazers. If once again you're one and done, if once again you have a glass ceiling in the playoffs, even if it's bad luck because of Nurkic, do you need to consider this offseason splitting those two up? OKC can't really split these guys up. Russ is never leaving. Paul George just signed an extension. And is this who they are? Now, how can they win Game 3? Yeah, Russ needs to play better. Paul George needs to play like he did in Game 2. But in this series, they are 10 of 61 from 3. They are 5 of 28 and 5 of 33 in those 2 games. You can't win NBA playoff games shooting 16% from 3. So it's Russ has to play better, and some shots got to fall for Oklahoma City.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.